because a phenomenon is an extraordinary occurrence or circumstance. So it's something that baffles people, something that shocks people, something that basically blows your mind, and something that's very real. So natural phenomenons are stunning and rare occurrences in nature. And think about how big this world is. It's massive. There are parts of the world that are undiscovered, there are parts of the world that are confusing, and there are parts of the world that just stands out as mysteries. And this is mostly because they are so rare and unusual. So be prepared, because everything I'm going to tell you is probably gonna make you want to look out your window and look into the sky and be like, hey, are the clouds actually that weird today? Please let me know down below if you've heard of any of these things before. And if I leave something out that you think is too important of a phenomenon, definitely comment that down below as well. So the very first thing we're gonna talk about are sailing stones. These stones have baffled people everywhere, because as you guys know, stones can't walk, they can't fly, they really can't move, but for some reason these rocks are moving on their own. And some of these stones are thousands of pounds or hundreds of pounds, and this only happens at a place called the Racetrack Playa in Death Valley. These stones move in a place called Death Valley. There is a theory that it's the high winds that move these rocks, but people have debunked this because some rocks move and others don't, and some rocks will also suddenly change direction. So if the wind is pushing these rocks, they probably stay in a straight line, right? Well, a lot of the rocks will like do this and then turn suddenly and then go straight again and then like turn. So they kind of have a mind of their own, and they're not moving all the time. They only move like every 2 to 3 years. They have been researching this phenomenon since the 70s, and still to this day, no one has actually witnessed with their eyes these rocks moving. So I find this whole thing to be so creepy, because this is the only place in the world that this happens, and it's called Death Valley. Like, what? And you know what's so creepy? I think it was like 2 years ago, I was shopping at Forever 21, and I saw this t-shirt that said Death Valley, and I was so like intrigued by it. It was like this black and white shirt. I'm pretty sure I've worn it in one of my videos before, and I had no idea what it meant, but I bought it anyways, and like, the creepy moving stones are there. All right, let's move on to the next phenomenon. This one is water spouts. So these are basically water tornadoes, okay? You thought wind tornadoes were scary enough? Well, these are made out of water, okay? People just call this the brother of the tornado. These are usually found in the tropics, but sometimes, very rarely, they will form over lakes as well. The good thing about them is they usually only last about 20 minutes, so it's a very short lifespan, thank goodness. And this is the part that blows my mind. At the bottom of this article it says there are only 6 known pictures of these water tornadoes to ever exist. 4 of them are from Ontario, Canada. And the reason why this blows my mind is because I took pictures of water tornadoes. I think I did a whole story time on this channel about the time I saw them. I was at a cottage when I was younger. I was like 12 years old, and there were 6 water tornadoes in a line over the lake right in front of my cottage. I got a video of it, I got pictures of it, I just don't know where they are. They're probably on my really old computer, I'd have to look. But like, I definitely got pictures of them, and it was definitely like one of the scariest days of my life. And apparently there's also snow tornadoes. So like, tornadoes can be made out of anything apparently, but these snow tornadoes are called snow devils. So let's move on to clouds, because I know a lot of these things I'm talking about not everybody can see, because we're not all near Death Valley, we're not all near lakes, but one thing that we all have in common is that we can all look out of our windows and see clouds. So we're gonna talk about some really creepy cloud phenomenons that you might have seen before, or might see like right now if you look outside. I'm just curious if any of you guys have noticed these. The first one is a fire rainbow, which blew my mind when I first read about it. A fire rainbow is an optical phenomenon formed by ice crystals in high altitude cirrus clouds. It says that if you're lucky, you might see 1 or 2 in your entire lifetime. So they're very, very rare to see. So it looks like the rainbow is totally distorted. It looks really cool. And they occur when there's very little moisture in the air. Now, there's also something called a white rainbow. So we're all used to seeing rainbows just full of color. But there are other kinds of rainbows where it's just a white arch in the sky. These are called fog bows. It's a rainbow produced by the tiny water droplets of fog. So that's what makes it look white. And there's also something called a moonbow, which I think is such a cool name. And it's a rainbow produced by light reflected from the moon rather than the sunlight. Now, this next cloud is the creepiest of them all, and this is the cloud that everyone is freaking out about. It says people are describing them as the world's scariest looking clouds. They are called asparatus clouds. Even the name, it sounds like an alien or something, asparatus. The clouds look downright apocalyptic. These are the clouds you'd expect to see on Judgment Day, or in the lead up to an alien invasion. So whenever people see these clouds, people begin to actually panic and wonder if something bad is going down. One look at these clouds and you know something very bad is coming. They almost look like crashing waves in the sky. I'd encourage you after this video to go on YouTube and look up how these clouds actually move, because there are videos of them like actually rocking like waves in the sky. It's like this giant wave blanket of darkness. These clouds were only named in the 70s, which is weird because people have been naming types of clouds for hundreds and hundreds of years. But people are saying this is a new cloud that only came around starting in the 70s. Now, on a lighter note, because this next cloud is actually really pretty, this is called a nacreous cloud. And another name for this cloud is actually mother of pearl clouds. These are very rare clouds, but once you see them, you like never forget them. That's how beautiful they are. People say you're actually lucky if you ever get to see these because they're the prettiest thing in the entire universe. They are mostly visible within 2 hours after sunset or before dawn. And they show these iridescent colors. They almost look like, you know when you look at a bubble and you see all of those colors in the bubble? That's what these look like. They're so pretty. They are seen mostly during winter at high altitudes, like in Scandinavia, Iceland, Alaska, and northern Canada. Sometimes though, they have been seen as far south as England, but it's more rare there. All right, let's move on from the clouds because that whole section just scares me so much. Okay, the next phenomenon is raining animals. Yeah, you heard that right. Raining animals is a very rare occurrence, but it has happened multiple times in the world. Literal animals fall from the sky as it's raining. Literally. There are a few theories as to why this happens. One suggests that strong winds traveling over water sometimes pick up creatures such as fish or frogs and carry them for up to several miles and then drops them. So obviously it's not gonna rain like dogs and cats and rhinos and hippopotamuses, like not huge animals that the rain and wind can't lift, obviously. It's gonna be small animals like birds, fish, frogs, insects, very small things that can be lifted easily into the sky. I'm not gonna show you actual pictures of this because it is quite disturbing, because there are pictures that people have taken with the animals all over like the roads and everything. One positive note is that usually like 90% of the time the animals land and are alive and okay, which I don't get how that happens, but I just hope you never ever have to experience this because that's terrifying. The next phenomenon is probably the scariest of them all. I know I said the cloud one was creepy, and it is creepy, but this one is actually like petrifying. This is called Fields of Web. In the middle of the Australian countryside, a phenomenon has been taking place that is often described as spider rain. It's basically when miles and miles of land are completely covered in spider webs, like a blanket. The first time this ever happened was in 1914, and since then, every couple years, it just keeps occurring. Back then, it was called angel hair, and people thought it was in connection with some sort of alien life, because back then they didn't really understand what it was, so people were like, oh my gosh, aliens, when it was actually just millions of spiders. On May 4th, 2015, farmer Ian Watson walked outside his home on a 500-acre property in New South Wales to see hundreds of strands of fine material falling from the sky. And hanging from all the ends of these strands were millions of baby spiders. So I guess this doesn't just happen in Australia, it also happens in Wales. Woo! And this is a quote from him. It says, "It was just unbelievable how many spiders were landing on my house. The shed, the cars, everything. No matter where you looked, there were spiders floating along." He talks about how they constantly landed in his beard, and he had a major concern for the safety of his children, obviously, because there were millions on the property, and anytime they would land, they would bite, right? They're spiders, they bite. This bizarre event is caused by baby spiders migrating for food, such as mosquitoes that come out after the rain. The spiders cast silk from their bodies, capture the light breeze, and float up into the sky. Ugh, I'm so grossed out. Like, when I edit this video, I'm gonna have to look up pictures of this and I'm probably gonna barf. So let's just move on, shall we? The next phenomenon is glowing waves. The illuminating color is due to a microorganism in the water called Dino Flagellates. I probably didn't say that right. Let me try again. Dino flagellates, there we go. It's a type of algae that grows as a natural defense mechanism from predators that try to eat the blooms. The algae makes a light when a fish or little shrimp tries to eat it. The light attracts a bigger fish that can eat whatever's trying to eat the algae. So these blue, crazy bright blue lights are just made from algae. Isn't that crazy? Imagine walking along the beach and all of a sudden the waves start glowing. I feel like that looks more like alien stuff than the spiders. And this happens all over the world, so you might see it one day. And the last phenomenon we're gonna talk about has a really creepy name. It's called the Forest of Knives. This forest has jagged, knife-like limestone formations that stretch over 70 meters into the air. There are some but not many trees or wildlife living among the endless maze of disoriented corridors, humid caves, and unforgiving razors at the ground's level. So imagine a forest, okay? Now remove all the trees and in their place put really jagged pointy rocks. So it's the forest of pointy, basically. The razor sharp limestone can slice through equipment and flesh easily, which makes traversing them extremely difficult and dangerous. I actually don't think any human being has ever been in that forest. They've only like helicoptered over it because it's sharp. It's dangerous. Not even many animals go there. Now on this channel, we have talked about weird phenomenons with the sun, we've talked about weird phenomenons with the clouds, and now we're going to the sky. And I realize this video might freak out a lot of people because, let's be honest, we can all see the sky. Step out of your house, out of your school, out of your work building, you see the sky. If you don't see the sky, I don't know where you are, like underground. So we're gonna talk about some really, really strange accounts that people had in real life. Actually, before I get into those very strange experiences, I just want to talk about my own for 2 seconds. This actually just happened to Ty and me like 3 days ago. We were driving home from my mom's house and we kind of live out in the country, so as you get closer to our house, there aren't a lot of lights, there aren't a lot of like bright buildings or anything. You're basically driving through dark fields and stuff. Sounds like a start of a horror movie. But as we're driving, suddenly we see this super bright light in the sky. It was so bright that at first I thought it was a spotlight or just something that was man-made, like pointing at the sky. But as we looked at it, we realized it was either like a shooting star or a meteor or something, but it literally went right across our car, right over our car. It was like something from your dreams. Ty slammed on the brake. We were both so shocked, and as it went over our car, it just dissipated. It was almost like we saw the sun right over our car. And that's what gave me the idea to make this video, because so many people have seen these very rare and odd things in the sky. If any of you live in Ontario, Canada, let me know if you saw it as well, because maybe it was just like right where we live. I don't know, but it was spooky. So speaking of Canada, the first experience we're gonna talk about happened in Canada. It was called the swirling light above Canada. On the 22nd of May 2010, a photographer captured this image of a strange swirling light above Western Canada. And you guys might think, oh, it's probably Photoshop. Well, no, because a bunch of other photographers actually captured the same thing at the same time on the same night. A bunch of them sent this image to some weather specialists to try and find out what the heck it was. No one was able to figure out what it was because no one had ever seen a moving spiral in the sky. What's really strange is that several of the witnesses that saw this spiral said there was a really loud bang before it appeared. And that led a lot of people to speculate that maybe it was a military experiment. Other people said maybe it was aliens, but since that time, people in Canada haven't seen it again, so that's pretty scary. Like, imagine seeing a giant vortex spiral in the sky, and it was like lit up. It wasn't a cloud. Now, that wasn't the only account of the spiral. There was actually one seen in Norway as well at a different time. This is not a photoshopped image either. It has been taken from various locations from different photographers once again. It was morning in northern Norway, and people saw a strange light in the sky, and it shocked all of the residents. What's really creepy is that witnesses say it spiraled for 2 to 3 minutes. It wasn't something that suddenly appeared and disappeared. It took minutes for it to be going around in circles before it just vanished. It says, according to the press, the light had been seen all over Norway, which means it was probably very high up in the atmosphere for so many people to be able to see it. So I don't know, guys, what if like aliens are starting to like experiment on Earth and like, are they coming? This next one kind of freaks me out, but a lot of people think it's kind of like sweet and pure. They are called the Heavenly Figures over Switzerland. In 2012, this image was discovered on Google Maps over a lake in Switzerland. It appears to show 2 human-like figures standing on a cloud. When people first saw this, they thought it was fake. They thought it was just a glitch from Google Maps. But apparently, if you go on Google Street View where these people are seen, you can see them from multiple angles. So it's not just a glitch. There was something there. Many viewers also pointed out the striking resemblance between the figures and Renaissance paintings. So a lot of people say they look like people you'd see in really, really old paintings in museums and stuff. A lot of people say they were sent from heaven. Other people say they look like they just came out of a nativity scene. So some people view this image as like a sign from the heavens, and other people are just plain scared. This next thing is a bizarre object that was seen over Italy. This bizarre image was also captured on Google Maps over a small town in Italy. The object appears to be some sort of strange cloud formation. And this was also not caused by a camera error because you can see it from multiple angles as well. Some people think it could be the tail end of a meteor falling from the sky. Other people say it might be the exhaust from some sort of unknown alien craft. Honestly, when I first saw this, I thought of the Wicked Witch from the West. You know when she's flying in the sky on her broom and she leaves behind that smoke trail? Why is this what it looks like? This next one grosses me out so much. It's called the Gooey Blobs that fall from above. In 1994, wait, that's my birthday. That's the year I was born, oh my goodness. In 1994, mysterious gooey blobs began raining down from the sky over Oakville, Washington. And what's so weird and disturbing is that they continued to fall for 3 weeks. It wasn't like a 1-day thing, a 1-hour thing. 3 weeks they fell from the sky. And what's so gross is that whoever these blobs touched made them really, really sick. Are you ready for this next part? It says samples were sent to a lab for testing, and it was revealed that the goo contained human white blood cells. So these blobs are part of humans? It says that to this day, no one has been able to determine what the mystery blobs were or why they contained human DNA. I mean, it's probably some government experiment gone wrong, but it disturbs me that they haven't figured out the exact cause. This next image is called Cthulhu is Coming. Now, if you don't know what Cthulhu is, he's this like big octopus squid god thing. I'm definitely not describing it properly. I don't know a lot about him, but I know he's like an octopus creature. So this image was posted on Reddit in 2015. It immediately gained attention and people started giving theories as to what they thought it was. Some people thought it might have been some really bizarre weather event, and other people thought it was like a sign from heaven. I feel like a lot of people, when they don't know when something is, they're just like, oh, it's been sent from the heavens. I mean, look at this thing. Does it look heavenly to you? But like I said, a lot of people said it bore a really striking resemblance to Cthulhu, which is a character created by the writer H.P. Lovecraft in his short story called The Call of Cthulhu. Lovecraft describes the cosmic entity as being hundreds of meters tall with a head that resembles an octopus. It has human-looking legs that are webbed and a large pair of wings upon its back. The legend is that anybody who looks upon Cthulhu will go crazy. They will lose their mind. Honestly, guys, I feel like this image has to be photoshopped. I don't really believe it. It just looks too monstery, if you know what I mean. Unless that's literally what aliens look like. Imagine. This next phenomenon really freaks me out because I never want to see something like this. There are so many accounts around the world of people seeing faces in the sky. And I don't mean looking at the clouds and being like, oh, I kind of see like a face in the clouds. It's when the clouds literally turn into an exact replica of a face. People have even seen the mouth move, the eyes move. I even read a few accounts of people saying the face would speak to them. What? And I mean, yes, to think about it logically, it could just be an optical illusion that just looks really, really realistic. But a lot of people believe it's something more than that. Sometimes when someone's relative has passed away and they look into the sky and see a face, they say, oh my gosh, that's my grandfather, because it looks just like their grandfather. So please comment down below if you've ever seen a face in the sky, because apparently it happens all the time and I want to know if any of you guys have. This next thing is so scary. It's called the floating creature over Zambia. In 2017, this bizarre figure was photographed floating above a mall in Zambia. The mysterious humanoid, which appears to be made of some sort of solid material, was estimated to be more than 100 meters in length. That is absolutely crazy. Local news outlets reported that the figure, which appeared to be wearing long flowing robes, was seen in the sky for around half an hour and then mysteriously disappeared. Once again, a lot of people thought it was the sign from the heavens and actually started bowing down to it. I mean, it looks like a Dementor from Harry Potter. You're gonna bow down to a Dementor. I mean, people can do what they want to do. I just feel like a sign from heaven would just be more pure and happy and not so scary. And the thing is, these aren't photoshopped pictures because a lot of people around Zambia took photos at that time. So this is seen at multiple angles at different locations. So maybe someone made like a kite figure thing and tried to freak everybody out. Or maybe it's like aliens, I don't know. One strange fact is that it has rained blood before. Yes, you heard that. It's rained literal blood. This happened in 1890 when there was a terrible storm. The wind was so violent that the birds flying away up in the air basically exploded. The birds exploded and it rained blood for the rest of the day. And that's quite disturbing to hear, if I do say so myself. I feel like if you were standing outside and that began to happen, I would think the world was ending. There was another time in 1841 where these people in Tennessee were working on a tobacco farm when suddenly they heard these loud crackling sounds from above them, and it started pouring down red rain. And I can't even imagine how confusing that must have been. And these people also said the clouds above them were even red. The whole sky was just covered in this blood red color. Another time in history, it rained corn. From about 1982 to 1986, kernels of corn rained down on several houses in Colorado. It rained so much corn that corn was literally piling up on the ground around people's houses. I haven't even found an explanation for why that happened, so if any of you guys know, comment down below. Okay, this is probably the craziest one to me. There was a time in history where it rained down alligators. In 1877, several 1-foot-long alligators fell on a farm in South Carolina. And what's so weird is that when they landed, they were completely unharmed and started crawling around everywhere. So these people were just standing around being chased around by alligators that were falling from the sky. And this next one, okay, this one actually might be the craziest. There was a time in history when it rained down cows. Sometime around 1990, a Japanese fishing boat was sunk off the eastern coast of Siberia by a falling cow. So basically, these these people were out fishing and found this boat that had been crushed and was just floating around in the water. Thankfully, I believe most or all of the crew members that had been on this boat were still alive. So when people asked them like, oh my gosh, what happened to your boat? They said that they had seen several cows falling from the sky and a couple of them fell onto their boat and cracked it. Now, I believe most people did not believe their story, but the crew members really did have this look on their face like they weren't telling a lie. And this only happened in 1990. That was not a long time ago. That was like 4 years before I was born. All right, this next phenomenon is definitely very creepy, and it was times where the rain was falling up, which sounds very weird to say, but basically it was going in an upwards motion instead of falling like we usually know it does. It's almost like gravity suddenly switched directions, and all of these encounters happened to people when they were by themselves, when they had no one else around them to also experience this. And it always happened when these people were pretty much in the middle of nowhere. One report was from a person who was lost on a dirt road out in the country. They were trying to find a bus station when the sky grew dark and they heard thunder. But what was weird was that the thunder felt and sounded like it was coming from beneath them, like literally in the ground. Suddenly, droplets of water began forming underneath his feet, and the droplets started lifting from the ground before his eyes and began going back into the sky. It was almost like he was walking through sprinklers on the ground. He said the whole time his head felt fuzzy and he was unable to hear anything. And when he finally got to a bus station, the upwards rain stopped and no one believed him. But what's even creepier is that this is not the first report of this happening to somebody. Like I said, it's happened to several people in history, and it always happens when they're by themselves, so no one believes them. And who knows, this could all be an urban legend or myth, but if this happened to me, I would be so freaked out. Rain falling the wrong way? No thank you. Alright, the next phenomenon is the singing sand dunes. It's basically a very creepy sound that the earth makes. Now, I find sand dunes to be so beautiful. I mean, all the pictures I see of them, they're like so majestic. But the sheer size of them are definitely daunting. If you see a picture of a person standing in front of a sand dune, they're huge. What's even creepier is that a number of sand dunes across the globe have been making some intense noise. People say they sound like a deep hum of bees or people doing a rumbling chant. So these moans that these sand dunes make have been baffling scientists for years and years. And just so you guys get an idea of what these sand dunes actually sound like if you're out there standing there in person, I'm gonna play this sound for you right now. So yeah, it's definitely a very haunting sound. It sounds like someone's just like out there humming. There was one study done that said the humming is caused by the size of the grains and the speed at which they whistle through the air, but it still baffles people how loud and powerful these sounds really are. And it never stops. Never. Alright, this next phenomenon is called ball lightning, which is kind of creepy for me to talk about right now because it's storming outside, so pray for me. We all know that lightning comes in zigzag bolts that strike from the sky. That's pretty much what we're all used to seeing, right? But on very, very, very rare occasions, it does not come down from the sky in that shape. It comes down in a big circular glowing blue ball, and that is why this phenomenon is called ball lightning. It's a very rare phenomenon and very hard to even predict when it's gonna happen, and because of this, researchers really don't know that much about it. Some people say they are electrically charged meteorites, and others say that these balls of light are just hallucinations induced by magnetism during storms. And what's really interesting to me is that there are literally pictures from like the 1800s, 1700s, all the way back in history of this ball lightning happening. There are literally drawings from history that show people sitting in their house and suddenly this big ball of light comes in from their window. So like I said, this rare event has been happening all throughout history. I have never personally seen ball lightning. It seems like something that would come from like Zeus from like Greek mythology. If you've ever seen ball lightning, comment down below. I would love to know. Next, we have a creepy phenomenon called the eye. There's an unnaturally round island in the countryside of Argentina. Many people have been saying that it's a hotspot for paranormal activity. So like I said, it is known as El Ojo, or the eye in English. English. And it has been visible for nearly 2 decades. So not that long, only about 20 years. People are still trying to figure out how it became so geometrically perfect and why it spins in circles. Some people also say that it's a major hotspot for UFO activity. And it just sits in the middle of this swamp surrounded by freezing cold water, which is very, very unnatural for the area that it's in. Usually the water there is very warm, even hot, some might say. Floating islands with plants are quite rare. And even more rare in history is islands that constantly spin. I can't think of one island in the world right now that spins all day long. So comment down below what you guys think this place is really used for. Do you think it could be paranormal? Do you think it could be alien related? I mean, I believe in both things, so. Alright, and lastly, I want to talk about a place called Gravity Hill. And the reason why I'm so intrigued by this place is because it's only about a 2-hour drive from my house. So I feel like Ty and I should do a vlog over on our vlog channel called Vee Vlogs, where we go and actually visit this place. Magnetic hills are very, very rare, and I'm gonna tell you guys what those mean. But this place called Gravity Hill is in Burlington, Ontario. There has been a lot of talk about a hill in Burlington, where if you put your car into neutral at the bottom, the car will climb up the hill. There have been stories about a school bus full of kids that had crashed at the willow tree at the top of the hill, and some of the children passed away from this crash. Some believe it is the spirits of the children that push your car up the hill. So guys, this place is terrifying. You literally go to the bottom of the hill and put your car in neutral, so you're not pressing on the gas, you're not using your car in any way, and it will literally be pulled up the hill, which is crazy. That does not happen on normal hills. So people say it's the ghost children that died on this bus crash. And there are a ton of videos on YouTube where you can find people actually testing this theory out, and it's terrifying. Alright guys, so let's get right into this video. The very first thing that I wanted to talk about is the Northern Lights. Now I'm sure everyone knows what these are or has seen pictures of the Northern Lights. They're absolutely beautiful, but these lights actually come with some really creepy and dark superstitions. I don't know about you guys, but I've always wanted to see these lights. I mean, they're just breathtaking. The Aurora Borealis has naturally been subject to many myths and superstitious beliefs throughout history. It features prominently in Norse mythology as well as in old Inuit folklore and Chinese and Japanese beliefs. So here are the 5 most popular beliefs to know about. The first one is that if a baby is conceived underneath the Northern Lights, it will apparently be blessed with good fortune and good looks. So that's, I guess, one positive thing. The next belief is that the Northern Lights will actually ease the pain of childbirth. But then along with that, which is the not so good legend, is that if you do give birth underneath the Northern Lights, although your pain will be eased, your baby will apparently come out cross-eyed. Interesting. I feel like this kind of clashes with the first myth. Then there's a creepy one that says if the Northern Lights turn red, run. A few times Northern Lights can be seen in the south of Europe. It is normally red. These very rare and terrifying sights made people see it as an omen of war and bloodshed to come. Apparently just a few weeks before the French Revolution broke out, these dramatic red Northern Lights were seen in Scotland and England. So now whenever people see them, they think something really bad is about to happen. I have never seen red Northern Lights before, so that blows my mind. And the last creepy thing is that you should never whistle at the Northern Lights. The biggest faux pas you can commit while viewing the Northern Lights is to wave, sing, or whistle at them. Apparently there are spirits that live inside the Northern Lights, and if you do any of those things, you will alert them to your presence, and apparently they will come down and literally take you away. There are a lot of beliefs that many people have gone missing around the Northern Lights for doing stuff like this because the spirits have literally just taken them. But apparently as you're about to be taken, if you start to clap your hands, you will be safe. So that's interesting. But there's another legend saying that some people will whistle at the Northern Lights to encourage the spirits to come closer, so they could whisper messages that would then be taken to the dead. So they would also use these Northern Light spirits to communicate back and forth with the dead, which is terrifying, but I never knew all of these eerie things about the Northern Lights. It's fascinating to me. All right, the next interesting place in the world is called the Hand of the Desert, and this is in Chile. The most captivating thing about the sculpture is its sheer size. It is a powerful figure and makes for a striking sight, especially in the massive expanse of nothingness in the middle of the Atacama Desert. It is 36 feet tall, which is apparently double the size of a giraffe, or people also say it's sort of the size of a large telephone pole. I know I'm gonna butcher this name, but the artist behind it, his name is Mario Orangeville. He really wanted to fill the emptiness of the desert with something amazing, so that's why he created this hand. And when asked about it, Mario says that the hand, the size, and the location all represent human vulnerability and helplessness. And a lot of people that go out to see this hand in the middle of the desert, their cars actually run out of gas, so they truly are helpless. Alright, next we have the Moraki boulders in New Zealand. Moraki is now most famous for its boulders that are mysteriously spherical stones scattered across a beach. Each boulder weighs several tons and is up to 2 meters high. Now, people call these boulders many different names. We have gobstoppers, eel pods, hooligans, ghoul stones, alien brains, and bowling balls of giants. Now, the creepiest part about this whole thing is that many people believe that these are actually giant alien eggs just washed up on the beach, and they're just waiting for the right time to hatch and take over the earth. I mean, if you look really closely at them, some of them even look like they have veins going over the stones, which make them look more realistic and look like eggs. Could you imagine we all just go there, take pictures of them thinking they're stones, but they're actually like huge aliens waiting to hatch? Next, we have a place called Chocolate Hills. These hills, which are usually covered in green grass, dry up and turn chocolatey brown in color during the dry season. Apparently, there are more than 1,000 of these hills spread out over 50 square kilometers, and they are apparently located in Bohol. I hope I'm saying that right. And because they all look so symmetrical, people think that they could be a man-made creation, but apparently that's not true. Apparently they are completely natural. Now, there are two legends that go along with these hills. The first one is about these two giants that were fighting, and they were throwing mud, rocks, and sand directly at each other. And no one actually knows the reason behind why they were fighting, but apparently it lasted for a few days. And without their knowing it, some of the boulders, stones, sand, and mud stuck to each other and formed mounds. Then there is the second legend that has to do with a love story. There was a giant named Orogo who fell in love with a mortal maiden named Aloya. They lived together and were happy for a time until Aloya got sick and died, causing much pain and misery in Orogo. Apparently in his sorrow, he cried and cried and cried all day long, and every time one of his tears fell onto the ground, it dried, and it formed these mounds that they now call Chocolate Hills. So yeah, I guess just stories about giants. Really interesting. So have you guys ever heard the saying, the man in the moon? This has been a common saying for hundreds of years. Think of all the movies and shows that show a face on the moon. Because the moon isn't an even surface, you can visibly see the bumps and shadows when you look at it. And for years, people have been saying that those shadows resemble a human face. Actually, in ancient folklore, people have said that the man in the moon looks like a man who's carrying a bundle of sticks on his back, but others say they simply just see a face. So I want to know, comment down below if you've ever seen a face on the moon. I feel like if I really squint my eyes, maybe? But when I see pictures of people who see a face, I can see it as well. There have been people that have reported being out on a nightly stroll, and they look up at the moon and see it blink back at them as if it was alive and watching them. So people have literally reported being out on a walk, having a peaceful time, and the moon actually moves its face. It blinks. It looks like it's actually staring at them. I've never had that experience, but it sounds pretty freaky. There was a story about a man who was camping in the middle of the forest, and he got up in the middle of the night to go to the washroom. He looked up at the moon, and he could have sworn that it repeatedly whispered his name. He said he saw the mouth moving and everything. Imagine being outside, the moon's like,
Jessii, Jessii!
So like I said, if you simply just go outside and look at the moon and try and find the face, it's pretty hard to see. In fact, sometimes it's so hard to see a face that many people don't even believe there is one. Sometimes you need to use a telescope to see it even clearer, but there's a creepypasta that if you stare at the moon for too long trying to find the face, it will show up in your dreams that night. Which seems like a pretty creepy thing to think about. Imagine just peacefully dreaming and suddenly this like face pops up. So let's get into some other creepy facts about the moon that you may not have heard of before. The first one is that there's actually trash on the moon. Humans trash a lot of things, including the moon. There are 200 tons of trash left on the moon. Most of it is space junk, but some of it was left behind by astronauts. Some trash on the moon includes satellites, rockets, cameras, golf balls. They even have the ashes of a dead scientist on the moon. Yeah, this next fact is so eerie to think about, and it is that the moon will actually disappear one day. Every year, the moon's orbit moves 4 centimeters away from Earth. It doesn't seem like much, but over time, the moon will be farther and farther away. So if the Earth is around long enough, the moon could disappear. Imagine going to sleep one night and it's just extra dark and you can't find the moon anywhere. That's tough to think about. The next fact is that there are footprints on the moon right now. Despite the fact that humans haven't been on the moon in over 40 years, there are still fresh footprints on the moon's surface. These footprints are actually still the same human footprints from years ago. Because there's no wind or water on the moon, they just stay put exactly where they are. So these footprints can last millions of years unless they are removed. This next fact is about a full moon and how it can actually affect your mind and body. If you have a hard time sleeping during a full moon, you're not crazy. A study in Switzerland showed that you may experience less deep sleep and have a harder time falling asleep during the full moon. So if you have a full night of insomnia and can't sleep at all, check outside your window and see what the moon looks like. This next fact is about a blood moon, which looks pretty creepy. The moon can turn a creepy shade of red, and it really freaks people out. But the blood moon isn't a paranormal event. It just happens when the Earth casts an orange-red shadow on the moon's surface. So it's nothing to be afraid of, but it definitely looks really cool. The next fact is that there are moonquakes on the moon. Earthquakes, moonquakes. Just like earthquakes on the Earth, the moon experiences moonquakes from time to time. Apparently they aren't super intense moonquakes, they only last a few minutes, but still, that's kind of interesting. The next fact is that the moon has some pretty extreme temperature changes. It can be as high as 200 degrees Fahrenheit and as low as -400 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is also why it would not be suitable for us humans to live on the moon, because we cannot live in those climates. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to creepy stuff with the moon is that someone saw a strange man walking on the moon, and it really spooked people around the world. The internet is going crazy over the fact that a dark human-like figure has been spotted on the moon's surface. Someone found the possible alien while checking out Google Moon. So Google Moon is literally just like Google Earth, except for the moon. I actually didn't even know this was a thing, but if you go on Google Moon, you can like zoom up and like look around the moon. It's actually kind of cool. So he sees a figure that looks like an alien is taking a casual stroll on the Earth's natural satellite. And it's so true. I mean, if you look at this picture, it looks like a skinny, tall, creepy alien just chilling out. Some are saying that this finally proves that aliens do in fact exist, but other people are just saying that it was probably a piece of dust or dirt on the camera lens which caused it to look like a figure on the moon. And NASA has not weighed in on the subject, at least from what I could find in research. So let me know down below, do you think this actually could be some alien creepy creature, or do you think it's just like something wrong with the camera possibly? But I personally believe there is like other life out there somewhere, and who knows? They could be walking over the moon. The first one is about a creepy style of rainbow. This creepy rainbow is called Alexander's Dark Band. And no, it's not a music group, okay? Alexander's Dark Band is when the sky between two rainbows is noticeably darker than anywhere else. A man named Alexander of Aphrodisias first discovered this effect in 200 AD, and it's been named after him. So basically, if you see a double rainbow, we all know what double rainbows are, this very mysterious dark band is shown between these two rainbows. This happens because raindrops along lines of sight between the two bows cannot send light to your eye, and so the sky appears to be darker there. Scientist Jessii is back again. The very first painting of a dark band was in 1865 called Blind Girl by artist John Everett Milius. The concept of the painting is that the blind girl is unaware of the glory behind her. It's actually kind of sad if you really think of it. She has this beautiful rainbow happening behind her and she can't see it. There's a myth that if you stare into the darkness of the rainbow for too long, misfortune would be bestowed upon you. So basically it's saying that your eyes should never stray from the color and the light of the rainbows. If you look in between, uh-oh. Others say that the darkness is the entrance to another dimension filled with evil creatures. Obviously, it's very, very far-fetched, but I think it's kind of cool that there is this really creepy myth that goes along with a rainbow. You just wouldn't expect it. Comment down below if you've ever seen Alexander's Dark Band, because I have not yet and I really want to now. The next weird place in the world we're gonna talk about is called Hidden Beach in Mexico. In the 1900s, it started off as a gaping hole in the surface of one of the islands, and over time, tides filled the hole with sand and water, creating a secluded watery Eden where people can swim to. It's completely out of sight. So this is literally a hidden beach that you have to like go through tunnels to get to. Not a lot of people know about it. I've never even heard of this before. I'm also super claustrophobic, so I don't know how I would feel being on a beach that's basically in like a bowl. It's called Playa de Amor, literally called Lover's Beach. It's invisible from the outside, but visitors can access it through a 24-meter long tunnel that links the secluded beach to the ocean. So like I said, it's not a simple beach to get to. You have to go through tunnels and stuff. Like, I'm intrigued by it, but also I'll probably not. I don't want to be in like a bowl of beach. The next phenomenon is called the black sun. Every year in spring and autumn, up to 1 million starlings migrate from Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and they create one of the most unique natural phenomenons in Denmark. So this is what a single starling looks like. Looks like a cute little normal bird. Doesn't look strange in any way, doesn't look like it represents a phenomenon, but when you add 1 million of them together, it looks like the world is ending. Thousands of visitors from all around the world travel to the Scandinavian country to watch the sunset being blocked by massive flocks of birds, as for a few minutes Denmark's sky resembles a painting. So there are so many birds that they literally block the sunlight. Everything goes dark, people just see this massive black cloud, but it's actually birds. What makes this natural phenomenon even more impressive is that before the starlings land, the flocks perform movements that those who have seen it up close compare it to dancing. So they all move in sync with one another, so it looks like a literal dancing shape in the sky. They never stray from each other. They're just like, oh, everybody watch us. Alright, so the next phenomenon is called glowworm caves. Most of these caves are in New Zealand and Australia, but the Wotomo caves in New Zealand are the most well-known, having formed more than 30 million years ago. The science behind the glowworm cave is interesting. Now, if you're looking at pictures, it looks quite pretty. It looks like a cave with the night sky and stars and sparkly lights. But when you know like what they actually are, it's a little bit gross. In fact, they technically aren't glowing worms. They are fungus gnat eggs that hatch, and their larva constructs mucus. That mucus coughs up silk strings, collecting droplets of more mucus. This is the net that illuminates and attracts flies or other victims for the worms. So these little flies basically spit these like glowing strings to catch food. Ew. Speaking of things that glow, the next phenomenon is called the fireflies of Tennessee. For 2 weeks out of the year, Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains host an absolutely magical natural display. From mid-May to mid-June in East Tennessee, one strain of firefly glows in sync and they flash at the same time. So if you're walking through a forest, it looks like lights going on and off from all of these thousands of fireflies. They all pulse in unison. This amazing phenomenon is actually a mating ritual, and the National Park Service offers shuttles to firefly-dense areas during this time. So once again, people come from all over the world to see this mating ritual from all the fireflies, and apparently it looks really amazing and magical. It would probably make any forest look literally enchanted. The next phenomenon is called skeleton flowers. I mean, anything that has skeleton in its name instantly intrigues me. These beautiful flowers are given their name because of the translucent quality of their petals. They appear skeleton-like. They look completely normal in the sunshine, but when there's wet weather, these flowers turn haunting and spooky once they absorb some water. It's a really cool sight to see. I love when things transform in nature. The fact that this flower looks totally normal when it's dry and sunny, and how it could look so like creepy and pretty at the same time when it rains. Love that. The next phenomenon is called the longest storm in the world. The Catambo is the longest storm in the world, lasting 140 to 160 days annually in Venezuela. This monster storm produces up to 280 lightning strikes per day and lasts for roughly 10 hours per day. Imagine a never-ending storm. The fact that this can go up to 160 days blows my mind. And listen, I love rain, but not that much rain. The storm centers itself over Lake Maracaibo and towers far higher than most typical thunderstorms. And the photos you can find online are absolutely insane of all this like crazy lightning. All right, the last place we're gonna talk about is called the Crooked Forest of Poland. I wanna go to this place so bad. It looks so mystical and strange. The Crooked Forest is a neat travel destination in Poland, as all of its trees have grown at extreme angles and seem to be crooked. It's rumored that this happened as a natural defense against a sandstorm, but plenty of natives have other explanations as well. Regardless of how this forest was formed, it's definitely like something out of Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, it looks almost very like Tim Burton-y, Alice in Wonderland. I wonder if like movies have ever been filmed here. I want to go there and have like a photo shoot.